Another episode. Getting deep into these now. So we're here with Bacon, or Sarah Jane, as she's formerly known at work, and by all of her people that probably she lets call her Sarah. I don't know. But yeah, she joined about 7 months ago now. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And had already been on quite a journey before, which I've been now privileged to be a part of. And, in some kind of small or large way, whatever you want to say, I'll attribute that to her in a second. I'll kind of let you talk about that. But you've come a hell of a long way. And what I wanted to kind of go through today is just where you started, what prompted that, and how you've kind of changed a bit. So if you could introduce yourself just to kind of run through, who you are, what you do, how old you are, a little bit about yourself, and what kind of brought you to being here.
Okay, so my name is Bacon or Sarah. Um, and I am 49, touching 50. I have been on this current trajectory for about a year now. There's a couple of things that kind of triggered me to move into what I'm doing. I'm HR manager. I kind of, spend quite a lot of my time sedentary, not doing anything, well, doing stuff, but sat on my backside. Wasn't getting enough exercise. I felt unhealthy. I was massively overweight. And then I found out last year that I had diabetes type 2. That kind of kicked me up the arse a little bit. To kind of reevaluate my life, what was going on. My brother had died the previous year, so obviously that was, you know, mortality was on my mind a lot. And, I just felt like I've not got no children, but I've got nieces and nephews and I want to be around for them. So I kind of made a really conscious decision last April to do something about it, do or die, basically, which I did the first kind of 5 months on my own, just with controlling sugars, carbohydrates, etc., etc. Last September, I had another diabetes test and I was out of that. Got to go a year free before I'm completely done, but that's kind of coming up. And then I found that I was going to the gym, wasn't getting really what I wanted. Glenn stalked me, and what he said kind of made sense to me. I think it was because it was something different. I mean, the basic ingredients are there, but it was something different. It was normalizing the way that you feel, normalizing your bad eating habits.
Do you remember how many times I messaged you as well?
I probably still got the evidence on my phone.
I can tell it was more than that.
So for anyone that's listening to this, he is persistent, but what I would say is do listen, do take the time to listen.
Oh, we're going to cover blowing my trumpet. Thank you. Don't worry about that. I mean, every pun intended. Um, so the interesting thing there I want to pick back out, right, is how you were already on the journey, but obviously decided not to get a coach yet or anything else. So what were you focusing on? Like, tell us a little bit of background. Obviously, I know you said you'd put on loads of weight. You obviously had the diabetes type 2. Do you mind sharing a bit more, like obviously where you got to when you kind of found that final straw?
um, so there's been quite a run up to the diabetes part. There was, I think 2021 was,
So just coming out of COVID.
yeah, was a massive thing for me
Okay.
because I decided that um, This is the first time I've ever said this publicly, so we'll get over it and get on with it. But I think it needs to be shared. So 2021, I kind of, not kind of, I had a problem with alcohol,
Okay.
and it got me to the point where I pretty much was on the brink of, if I didn't do something about it quite soon, then, you know, perhaps I wouldn't be sitting here today. But
Wow.
I, so, you know, there was all that going on in the background, and I suddenly just decided one day that I wanted to live and I didn't want to die. So I reached out, got the help I needed, moved on. And that was kind of the starting point. But then when I kind of was into my sober life, I then substituted alcohol for sugar, essentially.
Yeah.
And then that was fine because I was feeling great because I wasn't drinking. Um,
That probably felt like the lesser of two evils, right?
yeah.
By the way, sorry, I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. I know I've spoke to a few people before that have been through various sort of traumas and tribulations, and I know it's never easy to kind of say shit out loud. So you can swear on here, by the way, just to crack on. It's my podcast at the end of the day. It's called Glenn Talk Shit.
I've got
Um,
4-1 chair.
it's because you're at work. But yeah, I think the swapping of an addiction is common, right? You see people going from relationship to relationship, from toxic to toxic, from you know this makes me feel better. Let's say it's like online shopping to then like online gambling, or there's all these kind of things that. So what was some of the stuff you kind of learned from the help that you got that helped you to realize that?
Um, I just think that in terms of the alcohol, I'd kind of hit rock bottom and I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling anymore,
Okay.
etc., etc. So I kind of just, my head was in the right space. If your head is ever in the right space when you're feeling that low, but you know, I needed to swim up rather than continuing to hit the floor.
Yeah.
And then with the sugar and stuff, I kind of justified that with because I'd stopped alcohol and I'd been a good girl and I'd done that. And
So it was like the lesser of two evils then, yeah?
yeah,
It was.
it was the
Okay.
lesser of two evils. But then I kind of, when it got to, so that went on for a year, couple of years, whatever. But then when I got to the point of when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I suddenly, and hardest thing you'd ever have to do, considering how bad I was in terms of my health. And I thought, you know, sugar and food and stuff is there to, you know, nurture you, keep you fed. You know, you want to be well, you say you want to be well, you say you want to be healthy. So let's just get rid of the sugar.
Yeah.
Because if you can do alcohol, you can do sugar, right? Easy.
Well, alcohol is sugar. Yeah, that's what you get
Yeah.
told. It's
Yeah. So, but
yeah,
not so easy. But however, it kind of, I have to put things in boxes and compartmentalize it. Um,
I can get
and
Google Translate up if you want me to.
um, so yeah, I think I'd kind of got to the point where I'd done that, and you know, thankfully, and I do consider myself lucky because I don't crave alcohol. I don't want it. The thought of drinking it makes me feel physically ill, but and I consider that lucky.
Yeah, definitely.
Because not everybody gets that. Not everybody gets. And then when I started to cut down on sugar, and then I started to do a bit more research into what I was eating, and then I was thinking about the way that I was feeling without alcohol, the way that I was feeling now, you know, I was feeding myself better stuff. It was
Yeah,
just I was just feeling amazing.
So let's dive into that a little bit because obviously that's, people's one of the favorite sayings they sort of like to band about is, you are what you eat and all these sort of things. And to a degree, it's true. Um, we've got a lot of mums in the group, for example. Some postpartum, some are, a bit further along. We've got some women who are obviously changing jobs, running businesses, going through marriages, divorces, IVFs, so there's all these different stages. And you obviously started on your own, looking at, right, here's my pot of stuff that's going on right now. See, I'm using your analogy, the boxes. But here's, I'm XYZ dress size, I'm XYZ, I'm eating that much, I'm XYZ getting this much activity, yada, yada, yada. Um, so what would you say were some of the first kind of things you found helpful, either in benchmarks or wins for yourself or things to focus on that actually got the journey started for you on your own? Because I think from where you've come to where you're at now is phenomenal. And for anyone that doesn't know what Bacon's been through, obviously I'm just thinking of consciously of who's going to be listening to this. Like, she's been, I hope you don't mind me saying, into the 20s, and now you're, coming down to like, you know, being a little waif. So it's that's a fucking ton of stuff that even someone maybe 20 years younger, would be hesitant to attempt. So that's why I think hearing that from you about what
Yeah,
were the,
I
do you know what I mean?
think
Like, if you think about rock climbing, like, what were the first handholds you were grabbing essentially?
I think for me it was essentially the way I looked when I lost the first stone, which when you're that big is it doesn't you can't see it. But when I got to that point, I was like, right, let's get shit done. We can do this. And that was kind of what kept me going. Um, and it was all about the weight for me. I think I'm changing my perspectives a little bit more now because I want to be kind of more solid, more I don't know, more athletic, more muscly, whatever. I'm trying to I do want to shift my focus from the weight, but that is initially where it started. And I think when I got to the point, so I managed to do all of that because I'd shit the life out of myself with the alcohol thing. Then I'd shit myself life out of me with the diabetes thing, and was convinced that I was going to put myself in an early grave. So when I see the weight loss first started coming off, even the first half a stone, you're like, okay, I can do this. And I think I'd done so long on my own
Yeah.
that I think you jumped in at the right point.
Was that the
Um,
first or the 11th time?
Maybe the 11th. Um,
Okay, but
it,
what I think is important to address there though is how you just said the first half a stone, right? You couldn't see it coming off, but everyone in this industry is, no, don't do weight, blah blah blah. Like that. From what you're saying there, it was giving you quite a decent benchmark, right? You were being able to kind of see
so
it.
I think you've got to be realistic about it. There's a time to talk about weight, I agree, and there's a time not to talk about weight. And the time to talk about weight for me is when you are really, really obese because it's a problem. And it's a problem for your health.
Yeah.
So at that time, it was right for me to focus on the weight.
Would you say you were aware of your weight, and or had you kind of been kidding yourself up to a certain point, if that makes sense, or did it all come crashing
Um,
down, or was it a slow realization?
No, it's really strange because when I was in my 20s, I was going to the gym every day. I was like super fit. I was, you know, cocky with it, I suppose. Um, So I've always been aware of body image and, weight and stuff. I think I ignored it for a lot of years. Um, there's obviously another story underneath that, but that's not for, I tell you, but that's not for public sharing. But I think when I got onto the scales, when I found out about the diabetes type 2, I was like, shit the bed, how did that happen?
So it almost partnered the weight and the diabetes kind of became a obviously because they can come from the same sort of thing, right? You know, from what you're putting in your
Yeah,
body obviously gets turned to fat, but that will
yeah,
affect your sugar levels and your insulin, won't it? So okay,
yeah.
that's interesting. So what would you say you found the program, the group, the community, the maybe even the coaching, I suppose, like since kind of starting with us? And what were you initially kind of not worried about, but like hesitant of as well?
So I will talk frankly on this bit. I think, first of all, I when we started talking, I was lonely doing it or not doing it on my own. I wanted someone else in my corner. Um, I found after a couple of weeks, I found the community really helpful. I mean, all the girls have just got their own stories, their own, we've all got our own shit going on, but we come together and, we support each other. I think you are a You, for me, are what I would describe as a more normal coach. And I never thought I'd put that word normal in front of the same sentence as you, but it is what it is. Um, I was always nervous about you being a bit of a wanker, if I'm honest.
Is that still there?
Um,
Is that still the case?
only some days. But I found you sincere, you listen, and it's not always about you coming up with solutions. It's about, what I find useful is the probing to get to my own end game, if that makes sense. And I just find the whole thing really useful. There's some great people around us.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, sometimes that's because I just don't have the answers right. I'm just going to kind of keep just turning it around on you, just so you can eventually try and make me look really smart by me having intelligent questioning. But
but
I'm just
I do the same in my profession as well.
okay. So here's a question for you: what convinced you to finally pull the trigger? Like this wouldn't have been the only thing you were aware of, right? There was obviously personal training, there was groups, there's boot camps, there's all these things. Like what actually convinced you, right? This is going to be the thing that I want to give a go to.
um, because at first for me it was I could do a lot of it at home. It was personal, it was private. I had somebody in my corner that wasn't in my face. um so I guess that was it really. And as I got more confident, I could go out and do more stuff, like, happily go to the gym and blah blah blah. I mean, I was going to the gym before, but I can't say that it's an environment I particularly enjoy. And mostly that's because of, and I don't want to sound like a snob or anything because I'm far from it, but a lot of the clientele. um
We can tell the last bit from your accent. No worries about that, Seth. Don't worry. I'm only joking. We're from the
um
same place.
So yeah, I mean, I just found comfort in the fact, and I don't mean that in a wanky way. I just mean that, even when we was talking about, what you can do after your first 6 months, and then it was coming up to the 6 months, and I thought, I'm not ready to, I like what it brings to me. It brings, it gives me a warm fuzzy feeling. So it was, without knowing it then, it encapsulated everything that I wanted.
Wicked. That's good to hear. Thank you. What would you say some of the results have been like? Maybe your confidence, maybe your outlook on life. Going back to what you were asking there, like where do you see things sort of going for the next maybe 6, 12, 18 months for yourself?
I just see it going from strength to strength, really. I think, I've got a canvas now that it can only be improved upon. I mean, the canvas was a bit different back then, but I think I could start seeing more of the results that I want to see. But if you look back, on some of the progress shots and stuff, the way I've come forward is it's just massive. Um, and I think one of the biggest things for me is I've always had like a really huge chest carrying weight and stuff. And I've never been able to, like, my top half has always been bigger than my bottom half. But now it's kind of like it's all the same size. It's like revolutionary. And even silly things like that. So you can get a dress that fits up here, it fits down here, rather than it being, a bit tight here and a bit loose here. And it's just silly little wins like that for me that, just make me happy, really.
Keep you putting up with all the other shit that comes along with it.
Yeah.
I like it. That's good. Um, I think, a lot of people that are going to be listening back to this because, again, you are well known and well liked in in the community. And I only want to, if I could, find 100 more people like you, I'd be a, very happy business owner. And, that's what I'd say. So I think a uh, interesting thing to kind of end on is what would you sort of say? And I'm going to ban the word, yeah, just go for it, or the sentence like, if you want to give it a go, just do it. What would you advise people to kind of think about or to value or to question if they were thinking about doing something like this rather than and what do you think would be some of the maybe misconceptions that people might have about online coaching versus what we do?
So there's a few things. What I would say is if you're thinking about it, then write the reasons down, but really search into yourself. No one else is going to see those reasons. Write the reasons down and be honest. Start being honest with yourself because otherwise you won't get anything out of it. Um, and really kind of delve into those reasons yourself before you think about start sharing them, and do share them if you find a coach that you like. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I like about Untamed is the fact that um, you're essentially not a wanker. You're normal, you can talk to you. It's not some, I've had PT experiences at the gym, and with all due respect, they were awful because they give you over a preconceived idea, and they kind of affirm that in the sense of they're more interested in what's going on around them,
Yeah,
and looking for the fit birds, if that makes sense. And that
100%.
just taking that away gives an individual confidence.
I think that's a really important point because I was having this chat with a mate the other day, and in my 20s, for example, I say 20s because I met Chloe when I was 20. No, sorry, in my 20s, sorry. Between like the ages of, let's say, 21 to 23, yeah. If someone was in a set of Gymshark leggings, I'm talking to them rather than the clients I could actually go help and that had money and were in probably the most confused, overwhelmed state of the gym. If someone like knows what they're doing, but had a nice peachy little bum, I'm like, yep, I'm going over here. And it's a stage of the career that obviously you're essentially kind of promised by the PT companies where you're like, oh yeah, you can get paid to help people, talk to girls, lift weights, do the stuff you're already doing, and you get paid £30 an hour. That's how they kind of sell it to you. And I quickly realized, oh shit, I'm doing 6 a.m. start and then I'm closing up at 11 a.m. and I'm back in at 6 a.m. you know, what you're doing and the story was very different. And I made a sort of promise to myself to just be like, I just want to, it's really weird you use that term, like, I just want to work with non-dickheads. That's it.
Mm.
And I've never had like uh, a specific niche that I won't take anyone else out of. Or I've never had like, oh, I'm only coaching these people. You know, we've got people in their 20s, people in their 30s, people in their 60s, guys, girls, married, this, not that. Like, there's got to be something intangible that brings these people together, because I know I could put you in a room with Rich, Helen, Sarah, like, and you'd all get on fine. Do you know what I mean? So that's the bit that's important thing that I think to me is, if I could advise anyone on this, it's either, if you're not going to build your own tribe, which, you know, unless you're looking at starting your own movement, fitness club, whatever you want to do, or business like this, find one, because there will damn sure be one out there. And the amount of availability on the internet nowadays, your community that you're looking for, your tribe that you're looking for, that will give a shit and fucking run through that wall for you, is only probably 5 clicks away. Um,
Yeah,
so
and
yeah,
I think, without it sounding too crap, everybody's got to find their person in terms of a coach. And, you know, I'm lucky because I found my person as a coach, and I found my wolf pack as well, and it's great. So
so
happy
fucking
day.
find yours. Well, on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for helping today. It's been really good chatting to you properly, and obviously sharing a lot of the stuff that I didn't know about you, which is only endearing me more to you, to be honest, or you more to me. I don't actually know how that works. You know what I'm trying to say. Good to get to know you. On the next episode, we're going to be talking about a client of mine who previously had a heart attack, and that's why she joined us. And how, despite being in her 60s and not really having a lot of hope when we first started, what she's up to now. So that should be a next very good episode. So please make sure you have a look for that one. Sarah, massive appreciation for today, for your honesty, for your
No
hard work,
worries.
and just being
Pleasure.
you. Good.
Pleasure.
Right. And we are going to call it a day there, chaps. Thank you.